Today's outfit is brought to you by I went to the gym 2 days in a row, and now I'm very tired. In this pile, I mostly have books that I've bought. I have some books from free libraries. The free library books will be returned to free libraries in my community. The other books, I am first going to list them in my Pango profile. I have a link in my description box. This is not sponsored. I would love for them to sponsor me, but that's not happening in the near future. It's fine. But if you are interested in buying any of these books, if you've heard about Pango and want to check it out, I'll have that linked. So first I'm going to list these there and see how many of them sell, because I've got a hella long wish list of books I would like to buy from users on Pango. And then after a while, when I'm tired of looking at the stack of books taking up room in my house, I will make an appointment to go sell them to my local secondhand bookstore and then use that credit to buy more books. Today we're doing a book unhaul. I was looking back over my videos and realized that the last time I filmed a book unhaul was in the spring of last year, so like 10 months ago? That's a while. And I have acquired a couple of books that I am ready to pass on to other people for various reasons, so let's get into it. So if you spied this one in the thumbnail, do not be concerned. So this is Cazadora. This is the second book in the Wolves of No World series. It's a YA fantasy based on Argentine folklore that has witches and werewolves, or brujas and lobisones. So fear not. This is an extra copy that I have. I had bought book 2 to give to my cousin as a gift, and when I went to give it to her, she said, I already have that one. Which is totally fine. It brings me joy that she enjoyed the first book so much that when the second book came out, she went and got the second book of her own volition. And you know what? I think I had bought this copy for her secondhand anyway, so I will return it to the secondhand world and somebody else will find it and be filled with joy. And don't worry, I still have my my second copy safe on my shelves. Next, I've got this book. This is Working with the Tarot. Unlock the Secrets of Your Destiny with the Tarot by Sarah Bartlett. It's just a little like how-to reference guide for the tarot, for like a traditional tarot card deck with some like sample spreads. And I just never really got into learning the tarot cards. This book, the size of it is not very conducive for this being a quick reference book for me, because I would like want to leave it like on my bedside table, or I'd want to, like, my tarot cards are not this. You can't see it, but it's kind of like this size on my bookshelf, and if I had just like a little pocket reference right next to it, I might actually have like reached for it more. And you know, worst case, I can probably pull up like a card definition thing online if I want to try to get into it in the future and I haven't yet found a book. But this is just kind of in the way at the moment. So I will pass it on and hopefully someone else will find it more interesting. Next, I don't think I've talked about getting rid of this copy. This is The Kitchen God's Wife by Amy Tan. I read this at some point last year and I liked it. Like, I definitely see the hype with Amy Tan's writing. I'm interested in reading more of her work, but I don't feel like this is going to be a story that I choose to reach for again. It's kind of a theme with a lot of the stuff. It's like, I didn't dislike it. I just... I was watching someone else's Unhaul, and their phrase for it was like, ooh, do I love you enough? Do I love you enough to keep you? And I feel like my feelings aren't quite so harsh, but I do want to make sure I leave room to not feel stressed about acquiring more books. So I will pass this on to another home. This next one kind of hurts my heart a little bit. Okay, this next one I feel a little weird about, but when I think about like my reasons for why I'm choosing to hold on to something or why I'm choosing to get rid of it, yeah, this falls in the pass it along pile. This is Damnation Spring by Ash Davidson. This is a fairly new release. This is the first physical copy that I have ever won in a Goodreads giveaway. I've won a couple of Kindle copies before. And I did really like this. This is a historical fiction set in the 70s that follows a family of, or follows a community of redwood loggers, kind of the group of loggers that are kind of working on the last like field of old growth trees that they ever really felled from the redwood forest in California. And it follows a particular family, and it's kind of like an environmental justice kind of narrative where like the wife has suffered a miscarriage, and then she starts seeing that a bunch of other women are having like miscarriages and birth defects, and it gets tied into the pesticides that are used as part of the logging industry practice. It was a very beautiful story. It's very detailed, too detailed for some people. I kind of described it as like, you know what, I actually really liked learning a lot about the techniques about logging. I'm the weirdo who read Moby Dick and thought that learning about whaling techniques was the most interesting part of that book. And as someone who lives in the Pacific Northwest and like I've been to the redwood forest, like I had I had personal memories of walking through these kind of forests that are described. So I definitely felt like a cool connection to the story and the setting, and I thought it was well written. It's a debut, and I think for a debut it is very well written. But is it something I'm gonna reread? Not soon, not in the foreseeable future. Yeah. I feel like probably not in the next 5 years. And I'm going to acquire a lot of books in that time that are going to need room. So I pass this along in the hopes that someone will hear that description and be really excited by it, or, you know, be excited by this beautiful illustrated cover. I think that's the part that makes me want to hold on to it, is it's pretty. Unfortunately, that is not enough. But anyway, I hope my description and endorsement of it makes somebody else excited to see this, like on my Pango app or in a used bookstore, wherever it finds its new home. And books are meant to be read. I think books are also like meant to be reread, and if it's not going to be reread in my home, it needs to be given new life elsewhere. Kind of in a similar vein is Betty by Tiffany McDaniel. This is one of 2 books that I won in a giveaway from Indigathon, not last year, but I think the year before. And I read this during Indigathon last year in 2021. And I did enjoy it. I do absolutely see the hype. This is another historical fiction that is set, I think, mostly in the 60s and early 70s. And it's like a fictional telling of the author's mother, the character Betty, and her growing up as a mixed-race Cherokee girl. Let's see, born in a bathtub in 1954 to a white mother and a Cherokee father. And it's just kind of like chronicling their life in this small town in Appalachian, Ohio. And it is like it is beautifully written. Like the author's use of language is very beautiful in this, and I really loved Betty's relationship with her father. I think it's absolutely a very hyped, you know, I think this is a book that is deserving of the hype it gets. It also deals with a lot of trauma, and there's a lot of like exploration of that on page, so it's also kind of a heavy read. But I do think it is absolutely deserving of the praise that it has gotten. But again, that question, am I going to reread it, especially now that I know about like some of the rough scenes in here? I think I would pass over this one in order to read like another book from an Indigenous author that I haven't read yet, and I would be more excited for the new experience rather than going back to this one. So again, like with Dead Nation Spring, someone's going to be really excited to see this, and that's a reason to feel good about passing it forward. Do I want to get rid of this? You know what? I think the reason I want to hold on to it is because I think the cover is really beautiful. I like the colors. I like the constellations. All right, so this is Accessory to War, The Unspoken Alliance Between Astrophysics and the Military by Neil deGrasse Tyson and Abbas Lang. This definitely comes to mind as like one of my most disappointing reads of last year. It's not bad. You know, it's not the worst book I ever read. I think it's just disappointing because it promised a conversation that it ended up not having. So, if you do not know, Neil deGrasse Tyson is a very well-known public figure, astrophysicist. He has written quite a number of books about astrophysics, space, you know, talking about the planet Pluto, talking about black holes, and then he took over as host of the show Cosmos that was originally hosted by, what's his name? Carl Sagan. So anyway, I read this book, and like my main gripe with it was there was way too much detail around everything before we got to this conversation, the alliance between astrophysics and the military. And like some of it's interesting in thinking about like very basic technologies such as like map making, cartography, and navigation, you know, using, you know, navigation tools, navigating like by the sun, timekeeping, like these very basic concepts that you're like, oh yeah, I guess like the knowledge of that really is rooted in an understanding of the stars and planets and rotations of the planets and stuff, even before we really understood the fact that like the Earth goes around the sun and not the other way around. But anyway, like human beings' earliest figuring out of that stuff had a lot of like related military implications. So like, okay, that's interesting. But it was just like way too much detail, and I felt like I think I was really let down because I felt like there was the hint of like maybe like controversial opinion or like an anti-military, maybe not anti-military, but like military critical opinion that might have been like hinted at early in the book that was a conversation we just never came back to. And I think that was what I really wanted. I feel like it didn't focus enough on the conflict between, or like the tension between science needs funding for the pursuit of knowledge. And most of that funding comes from catering to military needs and military interests. And, this tension of, okay, but like, the war industry, oh, this is a timely feeling. The war industry, awful, destructive, awful, destructive, really trying hard not to spiral right now. But it also undoubtedly breeds innovation. And yeah, I wanted more conversation about the tension of being dependent on an industry that is, I would think, ultimately, clearly, ethically bad. That's a very not nuanced view of something that is actually quite complicated, but, it is interesting. There's a lot of really interesting information in here. It just it gave me too much filler information and not enough conversation. And that's what I wanted. I wanted less information and more conversation about this issue. Okay, now let's talk about some more random books. Okay, this is The Misfits by James Howe. This is a book that I think was part of my Amnesia Reads project last year. And I reread it and I enjoyed it. It's, I think for its time, it was a very inclusive middle grade novel that kind of revolves around school elections and the category of the misfits running for student body. I see what it was doing for its time in trying to be inclusive, and I think it's a great like starter conversation, but I also think that like middle grade novels have come a long way in being able to have more difficult, more nuanced conversations. I think for its time, this was great. And just like for me, it doesn't really have reread value. It's just kind of like contemporary middle grade novel that features, you know, the queer kid, the fat kid, etc. So I think someone out there is going to find this fun. Also, this is like a UK edition. So, like, I know my library doesn't have this, and I feel like that might be interesting for someone to be like, I have, like, literally never heard of this author or heard of this book or something. So that will be passed on. I decided to declutter this chunky brick of a novel. This is The Bind Up, The 13th Reality by James Dashner, author of The Maze Runner. I've just like learned about some things about the author that I've never like read them anything else by this author, and I've just kind of learned some things about them. I'm like, you know what? I was like tentatively interested in this to begin with, and that makes me less interested, and all right, I don't need to hang on to it. It's okay. The thrift store I bought this from benefited from my purchase, and beyond that, I have no obligation to keep it. Cool. Okay. Then we've got Pagans Crusade by Katherine Jenks. This is book 1 of the Pagan Chronicles. This, I think, was another Amnesia Reads, and like I read it and enjoyed it. I saw the appeal. This is a historical fiction middle grade that follows a young boy who becomes a squire to a Knight Templar in Jerusalem. And this first book, the latter half, takes place during the siege by Saladin, which I think is based on real historical events. And I think in my review I described this as like, if you have, you know, a 11 to 13, I don't know, a 10 to 13 year old, maybe a little bit younger. I don't know. I was a very advanced reader for my age, so I really don't know like what. I have a really warped perspective of like what age should be reading what. I'm pretty sure I read Les Mis when I was like 13. I don't remember most of it, but to give you an idea. But I feel like this would be an interesting like fiction companion to like a middle schooler learning about the Crusades and learning about, you know, that period of time in the Middle East. It will find joy in a new home. What was it? All of last year I had a list of like 24 books that were all of the books on my physical TBR that I started the year with, and I read all but 2 of them. I've decided to declutter one of them. This is American Chica by Marie Arana. And this book was originally written in English, and this is a Spanish translation of it. And it's a memoir, and I think I just thought about it, and I'm like, you know what, I don't know if I would have picked this up in English, and I think the reading level is going to be too challenging to be enjoyable for me to try to read it in Spanish. if you've like read this memoir and you're like, oh my god, it's actually a really amazing memoir, maybe I'll check out a copy in English from my library or something at some point. But am I gonna read this one? I had a whole year to read it, and I didn't even try to read like a chapter of it. So it needs to go. Then we've got some more plays. I am running out of plays to declutter, but anyway. Okay, we've got some random plays from this was like one of my like theater literature classes that focused on like Asian theater. This is 4 major plays of Chikamatsu, which focuses on the Japanese puppet theater, which is quite a famous art style. Actually, like the 3 styles of Japanese theater are very visually interesting, and if anything was ever going to like motivate me to try to learn Japanese, it would be to be able to go see like kabuki theater or no theater or their puppet theater. But am I going to ever like just read these plays for fun? No. So, did I write in this? No. Hooray. So, passing along that, and in a similar vein, I am passing on Japanese no dramas, which Japanese no theater is completely performed with these various masks that they each have very, very slight changes in expression. So, like something like this would like maybe be like a young woman, and then it would have like a different shaped eyebrow, and that would be like a middle-aged woman, and it would have like a slightly different nose, and that would be like an old woman. And it's performed with very, very slow, very precise, very exact choreographed body physicality. I mean, it's fascinating, but it's also the kind of thing where, like, if you haven't studied it, if you know nothing about it, you're like, nothing's happening. Like, they are moving, and now they've struck a pose, and supposedly that is, like, a shocking revelation. But, like, if you studied it, you know that, like, it's very precise. It's the precision is very elegant. It's interesting. Okay, anyway, but am I gonna actually read this for fun? No. Next, I've got a book that was actually on my Amnesia Reads list that I just kind of looked over it and I'm like, oh, this is like very academic, and that makes me really not want to read it. Like, here's just like a title of a section: The Prestige Hierarchy as the Invisible Hand. And I'm so the title is Wheeling and Dealing, an ethnography of an upper-level drug dealing and smuggling community. I'm not even quite sure what ethnography is. I assume it means, like, thorough study or something like that. I have a couple other books that, from that class that kind of talk about the same issue that are less of an academic study, and I will enjoy more. And I just, like, I looked at this and I'm like, I'm not gonna read that again. Are you kidding? No. Okay, then I've got this comic. This is X-Men Noir. This is, I don't know. I don't follow comics that at all. So I don't know if this is just like a Spanish translation of X-Men Noir, or if like this only exists in Spanish. Anyway, I acquired this from a friend of mine who was getting rid of it, so I could attempt to read it in Spanish and contextually with what I know about X-Men, which is basically what all is in the movies. I did not understand what was going on at all. There's like, it's like a noir mystery with not a lot of fantasy in it, and I don't really know enough about the characters to be able to like. Anyway, I'm not gonna read it again, just because I remember like it was not a language thing. It was what the context of the story was completely lost on me. Someone out there will be really excited to find it. In my posting, I will make it very clear that it's written in Spanish, which may or may not be a selling point. All right, then I've got this little short story bind up of, of Brokeback Mountain by Annie Proulx, of, you know, the movie's namesake. I've seen the movie. I enjoyed the movie. It was fucking robbed of its Oscar, but we know why. And then I found this and read the short story, and Annie Proulx's writing is lovely. I did really enjoy reading this. And because, like, it's so short, there's not much more in here that's in the movie. You probably get, like, a little bit more fleshing out of the characters because you get to really spend more detailed time with them. But I feel like it's quite comparable. It's quite a comparable experience. I think the movie did a great job of capturing the essence of the short story. Let's put it that way. Am I going to read it again? I am probably more likely to try and read something else by Annie Proulx than to read the same story again. Here we got a random one. This is To Say Nothing of the Dog by Connie Willis. This is a chaotic time-traveling rom-com. This is one of the books I had picked up. I'm in a whole long story for this. I'm in a theater group. People were talking about, hey, are there any like time-traveling fantasy books that feature a character who is the costumer for a time-traveling agency? And this was one of the books mentioned for it. And so I picked it up and read it, and it was quite fun. Very chaotic. Not a lot of science. Mostly just like time traveling shenanigans, people time traveling and like manifesting in the middle of a river, and then I'm like, oh my god, I'm drowning, and now you saved me, and well, now that you have interacted with me, that is gonna fuck shit up, and how do I fix it? What was the story? It's like this agency is trying to go back in time before this building gets demolished during like World War One. So they're trying to figure out like what's the exact moment in time when like a thing gets brought to the building so they can see it and see what it looked like so they can recreate it, but then get out of there in the brief moment between when the object's there and the bomb falls on it. And then there's like a romance that kind of like gets interfered with, and they have to fix it, and like, well, now the lady has fallen in love with one of the time travelers, I think. I don't know. It was very chaotic. And like that chaos is kind of like, I don't know if I want to go through all of that again. Because like I remember what happens with the main plot, but the rest of it is now just going to feel exhausting. But it was also like really funny and fun the first time going through, when I'm like, I don't know what's really going on. A common theme. Am I going to read it again? Probably not. I am going to pass along The Bride Test by Helen Wang. So this is a contemporary romance. This is like the middle of 3 books, and the 3rd one just came out quite recently. A lot of people really enjoy them. I did really enjoy it. It's just like these stories, they're much more contemporary fiction, I think, than they are romance. Like, I mean, it's definitely, I mean, I don't know. I'm still fairly a noob in the romance genre and like contemporary fiction and all of that. But I feel like it feels like the author is trying to like write a full romance story and a full contemporary fiction side plot. And as usually happens when I read a book that has 2 very strong elements, is I feel like I'm not getting enough of one or the other, and I kind of wish that it just chose to really lean into the romance and we got a lot more development there, or it just accepted that it was, you know, like in this one, I wish it would just kind of accepted that it was a story about immigration and, you know, an immigrant trying just like what a process it is to like have to prove that you are worthy of a visa. I did enjoy it. I might read more from this author, but it's just like, especially like with romance, I feel like there's such and putting all this energy trying to explain it when really the conversation is, am I going to reread it? Probably not. This is a fairly recent read. This is Hunger, a memoir of my body by Roxane Gay. I did really enjoy this. I thought it was excellent. And weirdly, like, for that reason, I feel like I need to put it back into the world for someone else to find. Especially, I really feel like I'm not the target audience. I feel like there is a lot in here about, like, learning how to talk about fatness in a healthy way. That word choice feels weird. Learning how to talk about it in a way with care but not shame. All of this to say, I feel that the impact of this book is for a fat person to come into this conversation that Roxane Gay is having and have a place to have someone like have this conversation with them in a safe space, meaning, you know, you're just reading a book that you can, if you have to, you can just put it down and walk away and take a break from it, and go on this journey with Roxane. And I'm tired. I'm tired and I still have more books to talk about. I feel like this book does its best work when a person who is struggling with living in this country in a fat body comes to this book and goes along in this journey and feels seen and is able to kind of like work through some of their own issues by seeing this author work through them on her terms. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, I did really like it. I would love to read more from this author. This book is going to serve the world better being passed on to other people rather than just living on my shelf. We're almost there. All right. So these last 6 books, these are all books that came from Little Free Libraries, so I will not be selling them. They are going into the pile to go put back into Little Free Libraries, but between being so busy and then it being winter and cold, I haven't really been doing a lot of walking. So who knows how long these are going to sit here, but at some point they will be returned to the community. All right. First one, this is one I just finished yesterday. This is Kingdom of Souls by Rena Baran. This is great. If this was not from a free library, I would absolutely be keeping this. The 3rd book comes out like in August of this year, and I am excited to continue on with the series. This is a YA fantasy. This is a YA fantasy inspired by West African cultures that deals with gods and demons and not strictly death magic. But there is use of sacrifice and zombies, for lack of a better term. But yeah, this was quite good. I will talk about it more in my February wrap-up. But yeah, so the only reason this is going in this pile is because it's a free library book. I think I talked about this in whatever month I DNF'd it. This is The End of Faith by Sam Harris. Religion, Terror, and the Future of Reason. I tried to like get through the first chapter and I barely made it like 20 pages in. Because like this book is supposed to be like a case for atheism, but just the way this author was formulating his arguments, I did not get along with his writing style at all. I'm like, I'm interested in this conversation. I'm not interested in the way that this author chooses to present it. So, DNF. Then I've got Snowflower and the Secret Fan by Lisa C. This is something I am interested in reading at some point. I had picked this up because, what is her name? Bookish Realm did her 100 books to read before you die based on books that she loves and her opinion of books that she wants people to know about. And this was a historical fiction that she highly recommended. I don't read a lot of historical fiction. And I was just like, this is going to sit on my shelves for a long time before I get to it. It is kind of a well-known and respected work. I know I can get it from my library. Excuse me. I don't need to hang on to a physical copy of it. Okay, then we have The Angel's Game by Carlos Ruiz-Zafón, author of The Shadow of the Wind. I did not know that this is technically like the sequel to Shadow of the Wind, which I've heard that like the 4 books in that series are kind of like 3 kind of standalone stories and then all kind of come together at the end or something like that. So, but, so I read this. I enjoyed it. I mostly listened to it on audio, so I feel like I lost a lot of the story. It's anyway, yeah, Little Free Library. I've read it. Time to put it back into the free library circuit. I don't know if I've already talked about that one. This one, Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. I acquired my own copy of this, so the copy that I got from the free library can go back into the world. Another book that, if it was not from a free library, I would absolutely be keeping, The Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. This was, I think this made it into like some of my favorite fiction books of the year. I absolutely understand the hype with this book, and I would like to read the rest of the books in this series. I think this one is actually the middle one, but I had no trouble understanding what was going on. Yeah, this was a fantastic crime thriller, and I am excited for someone else to find it and enjoy this. Enjoy? Is that the right word? Enjoy the story about a serial killer who targets women and skins them. Anyway, the writing is fantastic. Storytelling, great. Okay. We did it. Oh, my arms are sore. Not my arms, my pecs, because push-ups. Did push-ups. Okay. If you have made it to the end of the video, you're a champ. I'm exhausted. I hope you have a good rest of your day. I encourage you to go out into the world and be curious. I will have my social media and other places where you can find me, including my Pango bookstore profile, in the description box below. And for those of you who are still here, I will catch you in my next video. And in the meantime, enjoy some bloopers. Yes. My arm's tired. I did so many push-ups. Oh my god, this book is so heavy. Oh, I got a bunch of tabs in here. These have been in here for 10 years. Hey, the sticky is still good. Oh, spilled coffee all over my pants. How did you get splashed all the way over there? Jesus.